Okay. Baruch Shechianu V'Kimonu V'Gigan L'Zman Hazeh. We are now having the privilege to start Masechet Shabbat. Masechet Shabbat starts off the Seder Moed. Okay, there are Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. There are 6 Siddharim of Mishnah. You can remember them by the acronym Zman Nakat, Zroim, Moed, Nezikin, Noshim, Kodshim, and Taharos. So these are the 6 Siddarim of Mishnah. So Masechet Shabbat starts off the Seder of Moed. Moed meaning holidays and appointed times, the special times. The Masechtot in Moed include Shabbat, which talks primarily about the halachot of Shabbat, also halachot of Brit Milah. You have also Masechet Eruvin, the next Masechet, which deals how to make an Eruv on different types of Eruvim. Then you have Psachim, deals with Pesach, Shkolim, the coins that are used, that are collected during Adar and other times. Yoma, Yom Kippur, Sukkah, about Sukkot, Beitza, it's about Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, Ta'anit, about the different Ta'aniot other than Yom Kippur, Megillah, right, about Purim, Moed Katan, about Cholamoyin and Avelus, and Chagiga, which we just finished. It starts with Masechet Shabbat because, number one, it is the most common. It is the one holiday that happens every single week, so to speak. And it also is because it's more chashuv. And therefore, Masechet Shabbat is also one of the, I think, the longest of the Masechtot. Yeah, the longest Masechet in all these Masechtot of 157 dafim in Masechet Shabbat. Now, we know that the Torah talks about Shabbat a lot. It's mentioned many, many times in many different psukim, in Sefer Shemot, numerous places, in Sefer Vayikra, in Sefer Bamidbar, in Sefer Dvorim, and throughout Nach itself, throughout the Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Yirmiyah, Yeshaya, they talk about Shabbat. And Shabbat is the mainstay of the Jewish people. And more than the Jews keep Shabbat, we know that the Shabbat keeps the Jews. So it's a very important day. And as such, it's a very important Masechet that a person learns. Now, just to briefly touch upon the 39 Melachot, we're going to start with one of the Melachot, actually one of the last ones on the list, which is the Malacha of Hotza'ah, the Malacha of taking out from one Rishut to another Rishut. Well, we're going to talk about all these things in a little bit more elaboration. Just for the Hakdama, anything that was done, right, in the Mishkan, for the Mishkan, that is one of the 39 Melachot. And you have Avot, which mean the primary categories. This is exactly what they did in the Mishkan for this thing. And then you have Toldot, which are similar in nature to this Av Melacha, just not exactly it. But it's very similar, has the same result, has the same thing happening to it. And it's Melechet Machshevet, it's calculated work. There are many different parameters about this. We're going to have to get into it as we go through the sugya. Just to mention the language that you're going to see in the Masechet, you have to become familiar with. Which means when it says Hayav and it says Patur, what does it mean in Masechet Shabbat? Usually Patur means exempt. But Patur does not mean mutar. Doesn't mean it's permissible. We're going to see that if a person did one of the melachot of Shabbat, right, and he was warned about it with warnings in front of 2A-B, and everything was done appropriately, and then he still did it, he could be hayav skila. He can get stoning, right? If there was warning, he accepted the warning, he still did it, and witnesses and everything, he's hayav skila. If a person did it on purpose, the malacha, but there was no warning, there was not enough witnesses, whatever it was, he is hayav karet. All right? Karet. If he did it inadvertently, right, by accident, b'shogeg, so then he has to bring a korban. So usually when the Gemara and the Mishnah, they say hayav, it means hayav to bring a korban, because he did it b'shogeg. Right? If he did it b'mezid, if he did it on purpose, then depends. The witnesses, skila, no witnesses, no warning. So then he gets karet, right? Which Shemaim takes care of. And when it says patur in the Mishnah and the Gemara, almost always, not always, but almost always, patur means it is patur aval asur, meaning it's rabbinically forbidden to do, because it's still too similar to the malacha, the actual malacha that was done in the Mishkan. It's not actually it, but it's too similar, and therefore it is patur aval asur. It's patur. You don't have to bring a korban if you did a b'shoigeg, but it is still asur. So that's a very important yediyah to have when you start Masechet Shabbat, just to understand what it means hayav, what it means patur, as you read through the Mishnayot. Okay, so that was a little Hakdama on Masechet Shabbat. Did not do justice, but we still have more to talk about in the Hakdama before we actually start the Mishnah. So the first perek starts off with the malacha of hotza'ah. Okay, hotza'ah b'Shabbat, taking out what we would simply call in our language carrying on Shabbat. Okay, now everyone is familiar that carrying Arba Amos in the Rishus Harabim, right? That's considered carrying. But we also have to understand that taking from one Rishut, right, from one domain to another domain is also considered carrying. Now, what is a domain? What is the Rishiot of Shabbat? Okay, so biblically, there are three Rishiot. There are three domains. There is a Rishut HaYahid. Doesn't mean it has to be privately owned. Rishut HaYahid means, for Hilchot Shabbat, it is an area of at least 4x4 that is 10 tvachim high walls around it. Okay, when you have the 10 tvachim high walls around it, or it's a pit, let's say a bar, right, with a 4x4 and 10 tvachim high walls, this becomes what's called a reshut hayahid. Okay, so 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim squared and enclosed by walls. So if you have it more than 4x4 and still enclosed by walls, that's going to be a reshut hayahid. Reshut harabim, on the other hand, there's going to be different definitions. And anyone who followed us in Hilchot Shabbat, we saw that there are many different definitions. It cannot be roofed. It has to be streets more than 16 amot wide. There has to be a street that passes through entirely from one end of the city to the other end. There has to be, according to some, 600,000 people walking there. Okay, so that's it. Reshut harabim. And in Reshut harabim, we know we cannot carry in there. Reshut hayachid, you could carry in there. Then there's a makom patur. Makom patur is any other place that's not fitting either of the categories. However, the Chachamim come and said, no. The other places that may not be 600,000 people, or may not be this, or may not be that, they are too similar to a Reshut Rabim. It's huge, it's big, there's a large space there, right? And therefore, they said everything else is really a Karmelit, which is really a Reshut Rabim de Rabbanan. That's what they made, a Karmelit. So Karmelit is easily fixed, that you can make it to carry in there by putting up an eruv that we're all familiar with, a tzura tapetach. It looks like a door. You have two beams and a string on top, right? And you put that around the place. It's kind of halachot about that, but in the end of the day, you can make an eruv very simply in a karmelit. And Reshut Rabim, it's also possible to close it off, but you're going to need other stuff to do it, doors and stuff like that, which makes it a lot harder. So today, we want to say there is no real Reshut Rabim because of the 600,000 people, because there's no city street that's going straight through. There is more buildings than open spaces. There's many ways to make it a Carmelit and not a Rishut Rabim. I asked a question to Rav Yigal Chaimov recently, and he told me today there is no Rishut Rabim. So many poskim do hold like that. There's no Rishut Rabim, there's only a Carmelit. Other poskim say there still is Rishut Rabim. And then now we still have the Makom Patur, the fourth domain, and this is a place that's less than 4 by 4 tvachim, and is at least 3 tvachim high off the ground. This is, for example, your fire hydrant. All right, so the fire hydrant, 3 tvachim off the ground, it has less than 4 tvachim. So this place is a makom patur, which means I can go from my Reshut Yachid and I can put something in the makom patur. I can take makom patur, I can take from Reshut Rabim, put it in makom patur. Right, so I can put something from the Reshut Rabim onto the makom patur, and I can take from makom patur and I put it into the Reshut Rabim. That's not considered carrying. It's a makom patur. It's an exempt area. Okay, so don't get lost in the details. We're going to require right now only 2 domains. A Reshut Yachid, which in this example in the Mishnah will be a person's house, right? Person's house has walls, and it's an area more than 4 amot, 4 by 4 tfachim, and we're going to deal with the outside of the house. So the outside of the house being directly on the street, and is an Reshut Harabim. And we're going to have somebody passing something, picking up something in the Reshut Rabim, passing it into the house and putting it down, or someone from inside the house picking something up and taking it out and putting it out in the Reshut Rabim. So they're effectively moving something from one Reshut into another Reshut. That's going to be the cases of the Mishnah and how to understand it, and when it is a deoraita, when is it a av, when is it a tolda, when is it patur, when is it patur al asur, when is it kaputur legamre, and the like. So let us begin. The Gemara starts off, the Mishnah starts off, Yitziot HaShabbat, the transfers, the taking outs, the carrying outs that are asur on Shabbat. Shitayim shehen abba bifnim. There are 2 that are actually 4 cases from the inside the house. Ushtayim shehen abba bachutz, and there are 2 cases that are actually 4 cases that are from the Reshut Rabim, from the street, from the public domain. Now, there's going to be a list later on in the Mesechet, on about, I think, page daf 73 or so, that goes through the 39 melachot. And melacha of yitzi'ah, this hotza'ah, this taking out, is one of the last melachot that are mentioned in that list. The question Tosafot deals with on this page is, why are we starting the Mesechet with the melacha of hotza'ah? You know, if you want to start chronologically, you should start with Erev Shabbat. This is what you do Erev Shabbat. This is how you prepare for Shabbat. This is the tefillah for Shabbat. If you want to start with the melachot, start with the first melacha, right? The Siduri Apas, start with the first melachot. Why are we starting Yitziot HaShabbat with the melacha of Hotza'ah? Why dafka these words? And so Tosefot gives a number of reasons, and we'll go through a few reasons given by Tosefot and by the other Rishonim and other Achonim and other Mefarshei Hashas. So in the Masechta Gemara, he brings down 14 different reasons why it starts with Yitziot HaShabbat, with the Melacha of Hotza'ah. We're not going to go through all 14, but we'll just mention very, very briefly some of them. So Tosafot says that there is a lot of chidushim, a lot of chidushei halacha that a person learns from this malacha of hotza'ah. And so you want to start off the Masechet with something that is, something that has chidushim. Kama, you learn kama dvarim, hotza'ah, v'achnasa, tzarech akira v'hanacham, 2 people who do malacha, they're potter. There's many halachot that come out from this Mishnah, and therefore he wanted to learn it first. So it's something that is very, it starts off with a bang. You can say that. Rabbeinu Tam says that another reason, he says Masha Motsu Yoter, meaning that this is something that is found very regular all year, all week. You're carrying, right? And what is carrying? It's you're always doing it. It's not something that is like I'm thinking about. And then you might come to do it on Shabbat, right? So you got to talk about this one first because I'm carrying Friday afternoon. Am I going to Shabbat? So you gotta stop it. Tosafot says even more is that the malacha of what's it called hotza'ah, and many people view it as a malacha gerua, meaning one can understand cooking on Shabbat as a malacha. I'm taking raw meat and turning it into cooked meat. I can get that. But hotza'ah, what did I do? I just carried something. And so far, it's a malacha gerua. It's viewed as a low malacha. It's not transformative. It doesn't do something. It's I just carried it. And therefore, we have to start with this malacha to show you that this is a malacha d'oraita. It's an av malacha, and it's something a person has to be very careful with. Chatam Sofer says, interestingly enough, the one of the first halachot that we learn about Shabbat and about Erev Shabbat is Ayitza Ish from Komo B'Yom HaShivi'i. The pasuk said, "Don't go out from your place," which is talking about don't go collect mun. So don't carry mun on Shabbat. So therefore, let's start off with this malacha. We'll end off with one last from the Shabbat Shalmi. He brings from the Siddur Hadorot in the name of the Be'er Yaakov and Magaleh Amukot, who says, listen, in Mesechah Berachot, we all know it starts Me'ematai, according to Shema Baravid. When do we read Shema in the night? Me'ematai is actually in Gematria, Ani Yehuda Kadosh. I am Yehuda, the Holy One. Who's that? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the one who wrote the Mishnayot. He says the same thing is with over here. When it says Yitziot HaShabbat, in Gematria, which equals 1,223 plus 1, 1,224, turns out to be Ani Yehuda Hanasi ben Rabban Shimon. I'm Yehuda Nasi, the son of Rabban Shimon. So he wanted to, again, if you're writing a sefer and you want to put your name in it, you have precedent over here. Yehuda Nasi was doing that, and many do that. They put their name or their father's name or the mother's name into the sefer, and so the Yehuda Nasi, he wrote the Mishnah, Yitziot HaShabbat. It was Laremes, the Gematria, Ani Yehuda Nasi ben Rabban Shimon. Okay, those are some ideas of why we start. Now, we got a lot of good introduction. So let us now get into the meat and potatoes of the Mishnah. Yitziot HaShabbat. The transferings of Shabbat, Shetaim Shenarba Bifnim, are two that are four when the guy's inside the house. Ushtaim Shenarba Bahutz. And there are two that are four when he's standing outside in the Reshut Rabim. Ketzah. Okay, so what are the cases? So you're telling me there are two that are four and two that are four, the actual equals to 8 cases. So where are the 8 cases? So we're going to start. Ketzah. Ani omed bahutz. Oval habayit bifnim. Setting up the case is as follows. Standing outside the door in the street, in the Reshut Rabim, is the ani, the poor person. And inside the house is the rich man, the balabayit, the owner, the house owner. Now, many explained why choosing the word ani, why choosing balabayit. It's just easier to say ani, he's outside, and the balabayit is inside, rather than saying every time the guy who's outside, the guy who's inside, the guy who's outside, the guy who's inside. It's easier, less words. Ani u balabayit. Rabbeinu Avadne Bar Tanura, the Rav, he explains that perhaps it has to do with ani coming for tzedakah, and he's coming for bread, or he's coming for something, and a person has to be careful that he doesn't do hotza'ah b'Shabbat. No, on Friday it's fine to do that, but once it comes Shabbat, you have to be careful with. So the ani is outside, the balabayit is inside. The balabayit is in the Reshut Yahid, and the ani is in the Reshut Rabim. Now, what's the case? Pashat ha'ani et yado lifnim. V'natan letoch yado shel balabayit. The ani takes something, let's say the basket, right? Takes his basket and he brings it, he puts his hand inside the house, so he's outside. He picked up the basket from outside and he puts his hand inside the house and he puts it into the hand of the Balabayit. So he did what's called an Akira Vahanaha. Just to explain Akira Vahanacha very briefly, and it's not a full explanation. Akira is when I'm uprooting something from its current place. So I picked it up. That's the first part of Hotza'ah. The second part is Hanaha. I'm placing it back down. In order to be Hayab, if you did it by accident to bring a korban, you would have to do both parts of this malacha. That's the whole malacha. Akira v'hanocha. So here in the first case, the balabait, the ani picks it up from Reshut Rabim, and he puts it down into the Reshut Yahid. He himself is doing all of that. So what happens? He's going to be hayab. Or the ani puts his hand inside. He takes from the hand of the balabait, and he's the one who picks it up in the hand of the balabait, and he brings it out and puts it down, right? So in both of these cases, the ani was either the one who picked it up and put it down, picked it up from outside and put it down and inside, or picked it up from inside and put it down and outside. The ani hayab, balabait patur. The ani is hayab because he did the whole thing, so he's hayab hadat, right? Hayab a korban hadat. Balabait patur. The balabait is patur. Now, what patur is it? Is it patur of asur? What did he do? The guy was just passive. He was just standing there. Either he put it into my hand or he took it from my hand. I didn't do anything. So the Farshim say that perhaps you're right. Maybe this patur is not asur based on Hilchot Shabbat, but it would be asur. This is the Rambam that actually learned. Don't. Why are you there? Why are you allowing him to happen? This you're putting a stumbling block in front of him by being there and making this happen. So therefore, it's still asur. So it is patur al asur, but because of lifnei iver. Okay, so those are just two cases of the ani, the guy who was outside in the chutz. Either he's taking from the chutz, putting it in the fnim, or he's taking from the fnim and putting it in the chutz. He's doing the whole thing himself. Now, the next case is now Pashad Balabayit Edado Lachutz. The Bal Habayit, he's in the inside, and he's stretching his hand out. So he takes the bread, or whatever it is, the grape juice, and he takes it from inside the Balabayit, and he puts it into the Ani's hand, who's standing outside. So he picked it up, and he put it down. Or the Ani was holding the basket, and he takes the basket from the Ani, right? Picks it up from his hand, and he brings it inside, and he puts it down in his house. So Balabayit Hayav V'Ha'ani Patur. In this case, it's the opposite. The Balabayit is the one who is doing both the Akira and the Hanoch. So he's going to be Hayav. So these are your two cases and two cases. Two cases of Fnim, inside. The Balabayit is inside, and he's doing either Hotza'ah, taking out from inside his house to outside his house, or he's doing Hotza'ah, which is called a Hachnasa, bringing in, right, from the outside into the inside, right, from the Chutz to the Fnim. So either one, he is doing both actions, Akira and the Anocha. And you have the Ani. The Ani is outside, he's in the Chutz. So he's taking from outside into the inside. He's doing Achnasa, but he's doing the Akira V'Anocha. He's picking it up and putting it down. So he did the whole thing. He's Chayav Chatat. And either if he's taking it from he's stretching his hand inside, taking it from the inside and bringing it back out, he's doing a Hotza'ah, and he's doing that Akira V'Anocha. He's Chayav Chatat. Okay. So those are the 2 and 2 cases. But how do you have it as 4? 2 that are actually 4, and 2 that are actually 4 to make it 8. So here are the next cases. The next cases are going to be cases where each one is only doing half a malacha. Okay? Each one is doing only half a malacha. What's the case? Let's take a look inside. Pashat ha'ani et yado lifnim. The poor man extended his hand inside the house. V'natal balabayit mitocha. So the ani picks up his basket from the outside. He brings it inside, but he doesn't place it down into the ani's into the balabayit's hand. The balabayit grabs it from him, right? He takes it from him. So and then he puts it down. So the balabayit is affecting the hanocha, and the ani is affecting the akira. He's picking it up. So each one did half a malacha. Well, if you do half a malacha, you didn't do the whole malacha. If you didn't do the whole malacha, you're not chayav chatat. It's patur aval asur. O shenatan letocha vehotzi, right? or the householder, the balabait, placed the object into the poor man's hand, right? So he's the one who picked it up from his house and put it into the man's hand, and the poor man put it out and put it down. So the balabait did the akira, and the ani did the hanacha. Shnehen pituin. Both never going to be potter. Potter of a lasser. Now they'll do this, but you're not going to be chayav chatat because each one only did a half. So here you have two cases here. You have the ani. You have the ani who brought it inside, and the balabait takes it from him, or you have the balabait putting it outside, and the ani taking it from him. Right? Really, it's actually four cases because you have. If you take a look at each part, you have the ani and the balabait in the first case. Each one is doing half, and ani and the balabait doing the next case also half and half. But we're only going to look at the case with the akira, the one who did the initial akira. That's going to be counted as the cases. Why is that one only? Because that one has a possibility of doing hanacha. Right? If you pick something up and someone else puts it down, the guy who's picking it up is worse because if someone else doesn't put it down, he's going to put it down. He's going to do the full malacha then. The guy who's just putting it down never did an akira. He can never end up doing a full malacha. Only the guy who picked it up first can do the full malacha. Next case, Pashad Balabayit et Yado Lachutz. If the Balabayit extended his hand outside, Venatal Ha'ani Mitocha, and the Ani takes it from him and puts it down. Right? So he never put it down. He only did the Akira. So here is the case of the Akira here. Oshanatan Letocha Ve'echnes, or the poor man placed into the Balabayit's hand, and the Balabayit brought it into his house. Again, the Ani did the Akira here, and the Balabayit did the Hanocha. Shenein Peturin. All of them are potter, avol, aser. So if you want, you can take a minute to look, if you have the art scrolls, 2A2, note 14, and it summarizes the 8 cases. Okay? So the 8 cases, the poor man. So number 1, the poor man. He does both. He lifts an object from Reshut Rabim, and he puts it into the Reshut Yachid, and he puts it down there. So that's hachnasa. That is taking in, right, from the outside to the inside. And he did the ani, he did the akira and the hanacha. Or you have where the ani puts his hand inside the house and takes it out. So he does the hotza'ah, taking it out, and he did both, akira and the hanacha. Or you have the balabayit, who takes from inside his house and brings it out and puts it down there. That's hotza'ah, taking out, balabayit, and he did akira and hanacha. Or case 4, where the balabayit sticks his hand outside and brings it in. And he does both, akira v'hanacha, and this is hachnasa, taking in. Then comes the 4 cases that are really 2 people involved in each case. You have the poor man lifts an object on Shut Rabim, so he does the akira, and he brings it inside the house, but he doesn't put it down. The householder then takes it and puts it down. So the balabai did the hanacha, and the akira was done by the ani. So the akira of the ani, akira from the chutz. The householder, next case, lifts an object from the yachid and puts it in and places it into the hand of a poor man extended in the private. So the poor man's hand is inside his house, and he picks it up. The balabai picks it up and puts it in his hand. So the balabai did the akira for hotza'ah, and the poor man takes it out and places it down. He only did the hanacha of hotza'ah. So here we look at the akira. Number 7, his householder lifts an object from the Reshut Yachid and extends his hand into the public domain, and the poor man takes it and puts it down. So the poor man is the one who's doing the hanacha of this hotza'ah, where the balabai did the akira. Or the poor man lifts it up in the Reshut Rabim, and he does the akira of this hachnasa, and the balabai brings it in and puts it down, and he ends up doing the hanacha. So in those 4 cases, they only did half of it, and therefore it is asur derabanan. It's patur aval asur. There's no hatat for that. Okay, that was the Mishnah. Now we're going to go into the Gemara. The Gemara starts off Tenan Hatam. We learned over there. Where are we talking about? Tenan Hatam. There is a Mishnah in Masechet Shavuot, and the Mishnah there brings down many of the cases where it says Shetayim Shehen Arba. There are 2, there are actually 4. So it starts off Shavuot Shetayim Shehen Arba there are two types of swearing that are actually for what type of what are we talking about here? A person sweared and then he didn't do what he was going to say, what he said he was going to do. He has to bring a korban ole veyored, which means a variable korban, depending on his financial means. If he's rich, he can bring korban from animals. If he's not so rich, he brings from birds. If he's even poor, he can bring it from flour. But he has to bring his korban if he went against his swearing. Now, what type of oaths? So Gemara in Shavuot says that they learns in the Psukim, Beferish, is talking about future oaths. The guy says, I'm going to eat something, or I'm not going to eat something, and then he doesn't do what he says. So what happens? He has to now bring this korban ola v'yorei. And then the Gemara says, it's shtein shtaim shein arba. It's actually four. What's four? What's four is when he did swearing of the past. He says, I didn't eat something, or I did eat something, and he didn't. Then he also has to bring this korban ole veyored. So that's Shavuot shtayim shehin arba. Okay. Then you have yidiot hatuma shetayim shehin arba. You have yidiot hatuma, the that are two that are actually four. What is this? This is an awareness of tuma. A person becomes aware that he is tameh. Then he forgets he's tameh, and he ends up eating kodesh, or he ends up eating, or he ends up walking into the mikdash, right? So either case, he knew he was tameh, he forgot, he ended up walking into the mikdash, or he ended up eating kodesh, and then he remembered again. He has to bring a korban ole veyored. This is beferish in the psukim. And then the Gemara learns based on the ribuy, based on an explanation, and based on a expounding on the psukim. It says it also works in another two cases. What's this case? The guy knows it's the mikdash. He knows he's tameh. He never forgets he's tameh, and he knows this is the mikdash. But then he forgets it's the mikdash. He never forgot he was tameh. He forgets it's the mikdash, or he forgets that this is a korban, and he eats it. So in this case, he didn't forget he was tameh, but rather he forgot that it's the mikdash, or he forgot it's a korban. The original case is where he forgot he was tameh and went to the mikdash. Here he forgot that this was the mikdash or this was a korban. So it becomes two. That is four, and that is the cases of two that are four by yidiot hatuma. Then it talks about marot negaim, appearances of tzarat. So we know the pasukim say that there is a beheret and there's a se'et, and these are the two deoraitas that are mentioned beferush when it comes to tzarat. Beheret is like the whiteness of snow. If you go outside, you might still be lucky and see some snow, and that's the whiteness. And se'et is white wool. It looks like white wool. But then the pasuk says sapahat. Sapahat teaches us there's also a tolda. There's also another doraita, but it's on a tolda level, and it is a sapahat of beheret, and there's a sapahat of se'et. The sapahat of beheret resembles lime that's used in construction, while tolda of se'et, the sapahat of se'et, is the membrane of an egg color. So these are the two that are actually four. It mentions beheret and se'et, and it actually means a total of four. Okay? So you have here all these cases, two that are four. And now we have our topic. Yetziot HaShabbat, Shitayim Shehen Arba. You have Yetziot HaShabbat, the taking out HaShabbat. There are two that are actually four. So the Gemara says, one second. That's not the way we have it in our Mishnah. My Shana Hacha, the Tana Shtayim Shen Arba B'fnim, Ushtayim Shen Arba B'chutz. Umay Shana Hatam, the Tana Shetayim Shen Arba B'tulo. Our Mishnah said there are two that are four when the person's standing inside, and there are two that are four that the person's standing outside. And the Mishnah in Shavuot says there are two that are four, without mentioning inside or outside. We have 8 cases, and there it says seems to be only 4 cases of a Shabbat. So how do you understand this? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you. The Ikar Shabbat, who in our Masechet, where it talks about the halachah of Shabbat, this is the proper place of Shabbat. Tani Avos, Tani Tolos. You learn the Avot and you learn the Toldot. The Avot is Hotza'ah. Hotza'ah means taking out from the inside of your house to the outside of your house. So that's what we learned. That's what we learned. But the tolda of bringing in from the outside in, that's a tolda. That's not mentioned in Shavuot. Hatam de lavi kashabatu. There in Masech Shavuot, which is not the ikar place of learning Hilchot Shabbat. Avotane, you learn about hotzah, about taking out from inside to outside. But toldot lotani, but you don't learn the toldot about achnasa of taking from outside in. Bar says avot my nihu yitziot. What is the avot according to what you're understanding? Yitziot, taking out. The Yitziot Trehavan. There's only two cases of taking out. It's either the Baal Bayit is taking from his house out to the outside, or it's the Ani who puts his hand inside and takes it out to the outside. There's only two cases. So where is there two that are four when it comes just to Hotza'ah? So the Gemara says, now, maybe you want to say, what are the other two cases? When there's Hotza'ah, taking out from inside to out, where it's done half and half. So either the Balabayit is doing half and the Anis do the other half, or the Anis doing the first half, and the Balabayit is doing the second half, but it's Hotza'ah, right? And therefore you have four cases of actual Hotza'ah. The Gemara says you can't say that. Nami kulahu lechiyuva. When you come to the Negaim, it's two that are four, right? And all of them are their lechiyuv, meaning all of them make you a mitzvah. And if someone ate a carbon, or someone went into the Mikdash, he'll have to bring a hatat offering. So he's chayav for all four. So you cannot tell me that when it comes to Shabbat, it's going to teach me two yitziot that you're chayav, and two yitziot that you are patur. It cannot be. It has to be compared to everything else on the list, which is also hayav for everything. So go back to our question. What does it mean in Shavuot, Shtayim Shein Arba, when we have Shtayim Shein Arba b'fnim, Shtayim Shein Arba b'chutz? Here in our Mishnah, where we have the main part of Shabbat, right? This is where you learn the halachot of Shabbat, in Masechet Shabbat. Taneh Hiyuve Ufturei. We're going to learn both those that are hayav and patur. Hatam the Lavika Shabbatu. When Masechet Shabbat, it's just Masechet Shavuot. You're just mentioning Shabbat Agav, side mention. You're going to teach only ones that you are obligated for hayav hatat, but not the ones that are patur. The Gemara says chiyuv, ma'nihu. Which ones are chiyuv? Yitziot, just for taking out hotza'ah, right? The av yitziot tarete havayan. There are only two yitziot. The Gemara says no. Shtayim the hotza'ah, or shtayim nachmasa. We don't matter if you're going from outside in or inside out, right? Either way, it's going to be considered a hotza'ah. You're taking out. But it says taking out, and this is achnasa, taking in from the outside, bringing it into the house is bringing it in, not taking it out. Ravashi, no. Tana achnasa nami hotza'ah karela. Our Tana calls taking in from the outside in. It's also considered taking out. Mimai miditnan hamotzi minishut l'reshut. You see, taking out from one reshut to another reshut. Don't look at it as taking out from the outside in, and therefore it's a achnasa. Take a look at it as taking from one domain to another domain. No matter which way you're going, it's going to be taking out from one domain to another domain. That is going to be hotza'ah. Milo askinan dekam me'al minashut rabim ushtiyachid dekakarela hotza'ah. You see, the Tana calls it hotza'ah. The tamamai, and what's the understanding? Kol akirat hefetz mimekomo tana hotza'ah karela. Anything that makes the object leave its place, it's making it leave. So it's taking it out from its current place and it's bringing it to another place. Amar Ravina, says Ravina, matnita namidaika. This is actually what our Mishnah says as well, because it says yitziot haShabbat, taking out of Shabbat. The kame farish hachnasa le'alter. And the first case it brings is the ani bringing it in the inside, taking it from outside to the inside. He's doing achnasa, and it calls it yitziot. Shemamina, that also means yitziot. So you have Masechet Shavuot. It just talks about the yitziot hotza'ah taking out from inside out, or hotza'ah taking from outside in. No matter which way you go, it's going to be considered hotza'ah because he's taking out from one reshut to another reshut. Rava Amar Rava says you can learn the word yitziah to mean something else. Yitziah could also mean reshiot katani. They mean that there are domains. Rishiot Shabbat Shitain. On Shabbat, there are two domains that we're talking about here. Reshut Yachid, Reshut Rabim. Vehein Arba, and there are four cases to each Reshut, right? The four cases, the total of 8 cases, like we have in our Mishnah. So, Rishiot Ketani. The Yitziah means there are two Rishiot, Reshut Rabim Shayachid, and there are 4 cases in each way, in which way you are going. Okay, Rabotai, this will end off the first year in Masechet Shabbat. Is that the Shem we should be to finish the Masechet? We got up to page 2B3. 2B3.